Hey everyone, this is Tara. I wanted to share my fiber story and my making journey with you. I'm going to do this really quick because it's nap time for my two youngest ones and my 5-year-old. I've convinced her to go play Barbies in her room by herself, so I only have maybe like 5 minutes to do this before she finds me. Okay, so before I jump into my story, let me tell you where you can find me. I'm not going to be talking about my actual projects today. I'm going to do that in the next video. So if you want to see my projects, I'm on Ravelry as tbkennon, Kennon, all lowercase, all one word, on Ravelry. And then on Instagram, you can find me as a loop through a loop, all lowercase, all one word, and through is spelled Thru. So a loop through a loop. That's where you can find me if you want to see my projects and you don't want to hear my story. If you do want to hear my story, we're going to jump into it quickly, like super fast. So I grew up in Northwest Missouri, about an hour north of Kansas City. And growing up around 7 or 8, I started spending 1 week a summer in King City with my grandparents. And around that time is when my grandma taught me how to actually crochet and not knit. Taught me how to crochet, and I started doing the crazy long crochet chains that everyone talks about. And I would go from their bedroom through the living room and then into the kitchen, and then I would take it out and then I would do it all over again, over and over. Well, eventually my grandmother decided, okay, she's got this, I'm going to teach her how to build on that foundation. So she taught me how to turn my work and to keep building, and I set off to make my first rectangle, and it turned into a triangle, which I think is very common. Eventually I worked out all the kinks, and I probably made my fair share of scarves, for sure. And there was one summer, I don't remember how old I was, maybe 11 or 12. I went to go spend a week with them, and my grandma started making a doily, and she had an extra ball of crochet thread and an extra hook and was like, here, you can make it with me. And so my mom has that doily. I need to get that from her. But that was probably my first real project I ever made. And then after that, I made a scrappy blanket out of all of the leftover yarn my grandma gave me. And I don't have that. I think I got rid of it. It was hideous. But I made it when I was 13. I probably should have kept it just for like nostalgia's sake, but I didn't. Oh well. Okay. And then in middle school and high school, I didn't really do a whole bunch of crocheting. Fast forward to college, I made a lot of scarves, and I made blankets, quite a few blankets. That was kind of my MO, blankets and scarves. That's what I crocheted the most. I still have one blanket that I made. I am tall. I am 5'10", 5'11". I don't know. I dance somewhere in between there. And I want a blanket that covers my feet while I'm still snuggled up close to my head. And I can never find one, so I just decided to make one. And it's still one of my favorite blankets. So I have that downstairs. And then still only crocheting in college. So I graduated high school in 04, graduated college in 08, and then in 09 is when my niece was born, and I decided to teach myself how to knit. So I bought a knit stitch dictionary, and I just kind of made a patchwork blanket of different stitches and sewed them all together in pastel colors, and then that was my first knit blanket that I ever made. And I don't have that either because I gave it to her, and I don't even know if they kept it or not. So in 09 is when I started knitting. Now, I didn't knit again until my son was born in 2015. So there was a good interim of not doing anything. And it wasn't until that my daughter was born in 2015, and so I busted out my crochet hooks again, and I made this fabulous blanket. Of course, we still have it. And I'll show it on another podcast at another time, but I made her this fabulous blanket that I still love today. And then, I'm saying and then a lot. Sorry, not sorry, just how I talk. I'm trying to get through this fast. So after I made her blanket, then I had my son in 2017. and I just made his baby blanket this past November. Oh well, better late than never. And so eventually I can show you all of the projects that I've made, you know, in later episodes. But we're just gonna keep going. So November 2019, I was like, okay, I'm now a stay-at-home mom. We were in Missouri, now we live in Kentucky. So we're away from everybody that we know, and I'm not teaching anymore. I taught for 11 years, and I'm now staying at home, teaching my kids and trying to raise quality human beings, which is really hard. And I decided, okay, now I have the time. I can make his blanket for him because it felt really, really bad. And plus we also had a third child last July. So I needed to make her a blanket too, but I thought I should probably make his blanket first. So November 2019, I get out my Stitch dictionary, the same one that I used to make my niece's blanket, and I get out the hooks that I have, or not the hooks, the needles that I have at the time, and I basically just made him, I knit garter blocks and then stitched them up together in a variegated yarn. It turned out okay, but I think I need to make him another blanket. And so I have been knitting obsessively and compulsively since then. I made his blanket and then I went straight into making my daughter a sweater. And it's just been full throttle since. And I mean, I probably, maybe at the end of December, I'll tally up what I've ended up making this year. I can go back on Ravelry and kind of look and see, but it's bananas how much I've made because now I have the time. So that kind of catches you up. So I'm completely self-taught as far as knitting goes. I've never taken a class, and until recently I haven't had an LYS. So thanks for coming on this ride with me, and stay tuned for projects.